Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Monday, and no time for a live stream today. I've got a live stream running on Facebook today, so the time is limited, and I have to get to work and take care of a few things. So we're going to put it all on tape, and we are beginning a change here in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states after what was a beautiful Sunday with low humidity and sunshine. We still have a bit of the low humidity. For today, but it's going to be starting to increase as we go through the afternoon, but particularly for tonight and for Tuesday into Wednesday, as we start to see a series of weather systems moving along. You can see the first one, the leading area of moisture and thunderstorms moving across the Great Lakes and on up. We've also have some clouds in upstate New York and moving into western New England. We also have an upper low sitting out in the Atlantic, the remnants of the old depression to the southwest of that. For a brief time yesterday, it looked like the shear may have relaxed enough. It looked like it was trying to get a little better organized, but ever since then, it looks like the strong shear continues. And we are seeing some flare-ups of thunderstorms there, but nothing that we're going to be concerned about. I don't think this is going to really develop back into anything. But going forward, we do have things to look at in the tropics, which we'll get to in a second. Out in the west, it is still pretty much a continuation of the heat, although I think it's going to probably relax just a little bit as we go through this week to some degree, because that upper high is going to be flattening a bit. We have the late day and nighttime showers and thunderstorms that form up in through the Rockies. There you can see them here with the brighter white cloud tops. There was even risk of severe weather there indicated yesterday, so that kind of made sense. But we'll probably see more of that today. Meanwhile, this is Hurricane Eugene as it moves northwestward parallel to the coast of Baja California. It's going to now enter what we call the Pacific Graveyard. Anything above 20 degrees north, the water temperatures are cold, and these things just fall apart and really don't amount to much. Now, out in the Atlantic, we are starting to see a transition over into perhaps a more favorable environment for some kind of tropical system to develop later this week. We still have all this dry air that runs from the central Atlantic on southward throughout out a good portion of the tropical Atlantic. It looks like everywhere to the west of 40 degrees west is just sitting in dry air. But there is moisture on the water vapor imagery. You can see it here coming off the African coast. We have a couple of waves that are moving off, but one in particular that's moved off now south of the Cabo Verde Islands. That has a potential to develop later this week. Elsewhere, it's just pretty much more of the same. You've got these strong wind shear conditions going on through the rest of the tropical basin, and I'm not anticipating any development. By the way, right here, it looks like a pretty strong disturbance just moved off from South America, and you can see it here. It's a pretty well-defined disturbance that's moving westward, so you wonder whether that might become something in the Pacific in a couple of days or so. So the Hurricane Center is acknowledging on its 5-day outlook a 20% chance of development as this system moves toward the west. And I think that's borne out by some of the weather models that have been running over the last couple of days. But for now, it's not really of any concern. Here's the current radar from this morning, and you can see where the shower and thunderstorm activity is setting up through the lower Great Lakes and Ohio Valley. And also we have some off the Carolina coast and some back through Texas. The Storm Prediction Center, let me just update this because that was from yesterday. So this is today's. And the Storm Prediction Center has slight risk of severe across Indiana and Ohio. And that's, you can see these thunderstorms on the radar from this morning, from mid-morning, beginning to move eastward and heading right into that slight risk zone. So that makes complete sense. And for tomorrow, Tuesday, the northeast and northern areas of the mid-Atlantic back through the Ohio Valley in a large area of marginal risk for severe, with a slight risk up and through Minnesota, the northern plains. I wouldn't be surprised if a little slight risk area is added to parts of the Northeast. That's been the signature in the pattern for the last number of weeks when we've gotten these weather fronts at the coming through that we've been getting severe weather threats in parts of from central Pennsylvania westward and through much of upstate New York. That's where it's been playing out. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this get expanded over into a slight risk. So let's take a look at what's going to be happening here, which is really more of the same nonsense. And yes, that is snow up in northeastern Canada being indicated for tomorrow. Shows you where we are in the month of July. But we do have a couple of weather systems to work through. And you know what? This is actually going to play out a lot like last week. So this is Tuesday night. We've got a weak front there. I'm going to change the color of this. I'm not liking the red. So, you know, we've got this one front over here, and you can already see low pressure that is getting ready to come out of the plain. So this is going to be one little quick shot of, let's call it dry air for Wednesday, although it may not get, it may still be pretty warm. I wouldn't be surprised to see temperatures, depending on the wind, also over 90. And I don't know that the humidity is going to drop very much because the next system is already on its heels. So you already have this sort of warm front setting up for Thursday. So we'll get back into some showers and thunderstorms for Thursday into Friday. And again, this actually, again, looks like what we just went through with a little wave that wants to eventually move off the Jersey coast. This is for Friday into Friday night. Now, if everything moves along according to plan, it does set up for a decent Saturday, and then another weather front that comes through Saturday night, early Sunday morning, and another dry air mass for later Sunday into Monday of next week. So, you know, one of the things I tell young forecasters, and I mentioned this yesterday, try to recognize the signature of a pattern early, and it'll help you with your forecast going along. I mean, that's really been kind of what we've been seeing for weeks now, and I see no change in that. Out in the west, it is still on the hot side. By the way, you can see what happens to the remnant low of Eugene right there as it moves northwestward. It just kind of disappears, and you've got, you know, this basically a hot pattern continuing out through the western states right through this week, and probably into a good chunk of next week. As long as that ridge is out in the west, you're going to have that. You're going to have this be the case. Now, let's look first. I want to just kind of put a couple of things on this particular map here. First, let's look at the temperatures, because, you know, we still have, actually, you know what, we'll look at the temperature anomalies in terms of above and below normal. We know where it's hot and where it's not. But you can see how this trough in the east continues to, you know, cause for volatility every couple of days, where, you know, we have temperatures near or a little below average, then we warm up for a day or so, and then a cold front comes through. While here in the west, you can see how hot it is, and the larger air anomalies start to move into Montana and the Dakotas, which makes sense. And then going forward, you know, you start to see that area shrink a little bit. So let's see what happens with the upper air pattern going on in the long term, because maybe I haven't really given it a good look here. So let's see what this has to say. And again, this is just one run. All right, so let's go back. Here we are with our trough for this week, which is not nearly as deep as what we saw last week. Still have that northwest flow, still have that ridge in the west through this week and into the weekend. And as we move forward, it looks like the ridge kind of wants to flatten out and spread eastward a bit. So you can see it here. That's at least from the standpoint of the GFS. It starts to punch its way eastward. So this would actually indicate that we could see some hot weather the middle and latter part of next week. So July 9th, let's say July 19th, 20th, and 21st, before the trough kind of reestablishes itself to some degree. You know, that's a pretty strong upper low sitting in eastern Canada, so we'll probably get a shot of cooler, drier air coming into the northeast after 3 days or so. And you still have, again, after that, you know, you still kind of have this signature trough in the east, ridge in the west. So that pretty well continues. overall. Now let's look at the tropics really fast because it's amazing to me. I'm already getting messages and people asking me because of what models have been doing for the last few days with storms here, storms there, moving up the East Coast, wiping out South Carolina to Maine. I mean, come on, people, let's not get. It really is it's always been a problem for me to see stuff like this happen, and there's no context in any of this other than the fact that there are some people just attempting to want to generate clicks on their websites. I mean, I understand that that's what the game is about to some degree, but come on, stop it, okay? I would say we continue to still favor the idea of maybe some cyclonegenesis in the east of the Leeward or Windward Islands later this week. The GFS does show this, but the overnight today's run takes basically a tropical storm across all of the land masses and moves it into the Gulf of Mexico instead of moving it up the East Coast. So this is why you can't look at run. You cannot go jumping from run to run with regards to all this. There are just way too many variables. So you know what? At this point, let's just say. In fact, before we even do that, before I say anything, let's look at the European. I mean, the European does have some kind of little low here, but it doesn't really do much with that, at least through 96 hours. And then it doesn't do much of anything at all with it through 240. So you know what? That's a consideration that the GFS, which actually has, admittedly has done well with the prior storms that we've seen, Brett and Cindy, doesn't mean that its outperformance from that respect is going to continue. And the Canadian, as we roll it along, maybe this is what it has, some little marking to it. I mean, I don't know. Canadian has next to nothing through its 240 hour. So you know what? It's just the GFS that's doing this. And let's go put the, excuse me. That was the 6Z run of the GFS. So let's see where it is, where it was on the 0Z. And you can see that, the 0Z has something in the Northeast Caribbean, in the Northeast Caribbean through the Bahamas, and then it flips it west across Florida, and then on up across the Gulf states. You know what, folks? This is going to be, this is going to be what we're going to have to contend with. We're going to deal with variability from run to run and models to model to model, and there is no guarantee that anything is going to develop at all. So until we get something, this is all speculative nonsense. Whatever you see on the internet from people is speculative nonsense. And if they claim it's not, I would just say that some of them would probably be guilty of doing it a couple of weeks ago with Tropical Depression 4. So you can kind of see what their track record is. Right now, nothing to worry about. Go about your daily routine of enjoying your summertime, which is absolute priority. Okay, folks, have a great Monday. Check out any additional website posts on meteorologistjoechaffe.com. And thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, just hit this little red subscribe button because I do live stream some of this stuff and you'll get notifications when the live stream comes up. We had a fun time yesterday for 30 minutes with that live stream with the chat, and I'm looking forward to doing it again as soon as I get a little bit of time later this week.